Hi, Ransom. He didn't hear me. I used to sit next to him. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. That's new.
I'm going to call the meeting to order tonight. If I could have everybody's attention. It's going to be very noisy in here if everybody speaks. So we'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. Chris, you want to call the roll, please? Or somebody? Thanks.
Commissioner Alexander, Commissioner DeBrava,
Here.
Commissioner Ellis,
Here?
Commissioner Hayes, Commissioner Hyder,
Here.
Commissioner Mann, Commissioner Bridges.
Here. Thank you. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. Y'all should have gotten your packets, and if there's any changes to the agenda, let's get them done now, and if not, let's move forward. Anybody have any changes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Hyder,
Aye.
Commissioner Bridges,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava.
Aye.
Okay, next item of business is the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. That would be the meeting of January 8th, 2024. If there are any changes that need to be made to that, let's make them.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner Bridges,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava,
Aye.
Commissioner Hyder.
Aye.
You're going to read my meeting procedures for us, please?
Yes, I will. The Planning and Zoning Commission holds public hearings as required by law and provides recommendations to City Council on matters relating to land use planning, zoning, and the subdivision of land. Any person who has interest in the subject matter of a hearing will have the opportunity to provide testimony and present evidence to the Commission during the public hearing. Speakers are required to conduct themselves in an orderly and respectful manner. Disruptive behavior, including applause, yelling, speaking out of turn, or other inappropriate behaviors will not be tolerated. Additionally, the following applies to any person addressing the Commission. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes unless authorized additional time by the chairperson. Speakers must speak at the podium unless previous arrangements have been made by the chairperson. Speakers must legibly print their name and address on the sign-in sheet at the podium prior to speaking. Speakers must begin by stating their name and address. And finally, speakers should clearly into the microphone. The chairperson will announce the subject of the hearing, followed by a staff report. The chairperson will then open the public hearing to the applicant, followed by those in favor of the application and those opposed to the application. The chairperson will close the public hearing. During this time, the commission will discuss amongst themselves. The public may not address the commission after the close of the public hearing unless requested by the chairperson. And the Planning Commission shall base their recommendation and or decision on information and evidence presented during the public hearing. This decision, if required by the application, will be forwarded in writing to City Council for further consideration.
Thank you. We have 2 public hearings tonight, and as the procedures say, I will call them each. I'll call one. We'll discuss it, get any comments, close it, and then we'll move to the second one following discussion of the first. The first public hearing is PDD 24-001, public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 40.64 acres located at 664 East Aaron Way from Planned Development District to Brookside Estates Planned Development District, PDD. Staff?
Thank you, Chairman Ellis. My name is Chris Tabor. I'm the principal planner for the city. SGF Landing LLC has applied to change the zoning classification of approximately 40.64 acres of property located at 664 East Aaron Way from Planned Development District PDD to Brookside Estates Planned Development District PDD. The property subject to this rezone application is comprised of, as I stated, 40.64 acres of land. The property is currently occupied by 2 residential dwellings and some accessory structures. The use of the property is primarily residential in nature. The applicant is proposing the rezoning of the subject property to Brookside Estates Planned Development District PDD, a single-family residential subdivision containing a maximum of 153 lots and a maximum density of 3.76 lots per acre. Specifically, the proposed development plan will allow for a mix of single-family residential lots, consisting of 48 lots with a minimum lot size of 9,000 square feet, 105 lots with a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet, and detention. The development plan also contains new water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater systems to support the development, a required collector street, and a number of local streets to support it. The applicant's proposal includes the following elements. The green lots up there are medium-density single-family R1M lots. They conform with the city's medium-density zoning district. There's 48 of them. The permitted uses are single-family detached residential dwelling units, and the setbacks, which are the required distance of the building footprint to the respective property line, is 25 feet in the front, 25 feet in the rear, interior side setbacks of 6 feet, and side street setbacks of 15 feet. The required frontage, which is the measurement of the property along the road, would be 80 feet. The lots in the middle, the yellow, are match the city's high-density single-family residential R1H zoning district. There are 105 of these lots. The permitted uses are single-family residential detached dwelling units. The setbacks for these lots are 25 feet from the front property line, 25 feet from the rear property line, 6 feet from the interior side setback, and 15 feet from a side street setback. The required frontage of these lots are 70 feet along the street. The following paragraphs contain brief analysis of the present site conditions as well as the proposal's relationship to adopted city plans. The subject property is currently zoned as part of the Valley Trails Planned Development District, PDD. This PDD allows for single-family homes at a density of 2.7 homes per acre. The development plan for Valley Trails includes custom setbacks and lot sizes. Lot specifications for the subject property's existing zoning PDD include the following elements. The permitted uses on the existing zoning are single-family residential detached with setbacks of 15 feet from the front, 15 feet from the rear, and 5 feet from the side, and they require a lot width or frontage of 50 feet along the road. The purpose of the plan development regulations is to allow for mixed-use, unconventional, or innovative arrangements of land uses in public facilities, which would be difficult to develop under the conventional land use and development regulations of the city. Planned unit developments must demonstrate a substantial congruence with each of the following conditions in order to be considered eligible for approval. The proposed development plan shall involve a mixture or variation of land uses or densities. The Brookside Estates PDD includes 2 differing residential densities within the project area. The proposed development plan shall involve the provision of all infrastructure deemed necessary to adequately serve the potential development. The Brookside Estates PDD development plan includes provisions for municipal water and sewer services, a plan for stormwater management, and the construction of several local class streets and 1 collector class street. The proposed development plan shall involve design elements that promote the City of Republic's comprehensive plan and other adopted plans of the city. The City of Republic's comprehensive and land use plans promote the expansion of commercial and residential development at locations supported by the city's water, sanitary sewer, and transportation networks. The Brookside Estates property can be adequately supported by the city's capacity for water, sewer, and transportation. The proposed development shall involve design elements intended to lessen congestion in the streets to secure safety from fire, panic, and other dangers, to promote health and the general welfare, to provide adequate light and air, to prevent the overcrowding of land, to avoid undue concentration of population, to preserve features of historical significance, to facilitate the adequate provision of transportation, water, sewerage, schools, parks, and other public improvements. The Brookside Estates development plan includes the construction of Grace Street, which would serve as a collector from Main Street to Lynn Avenue. As currently configured, no such connection exists for more than 5,000 feet between Miller Road and Country Line Road. The city's comprehensive plan and land use plan generally encourages the expansion of residential development through proactive rezoning of land at the appropriate locations. Appropriate locations are described generally throughout the plan with regard to the relationship of land at particular locations to infrastructure capable of supporting various intensities and densities of uses. The 2021 Comprehensive Plan and Land Use Plan identifies land use goals and objectives relating to development as follows. Community development goals and objectives. Goal 1, support market conditions to develop a greater variety of residential options. Objective 1A, to support a variety of housing developments and styles to ensure a range of options are available. Coordination with infrastructure. Goal 1, support new development that is well connected to the existing community. Objective 1A, to encourage development that improves and expands upon existing infrastructure. Objective 1B, to promote development aligning with current adopted plans of the city. Goal 2, to recognize potential infill sites as opportunities for development while mitigating impacts to adjacent established properties. Objective 1A, to support the development of vacant parcels as opportunities for densification that is harmonious with surrounding development. Compatibility with surrounding land uses. Zoning compatibility. The subject site is surrounded by existing agricultural and residential zoned properties and uses. To the north are medium-density single-family residential homes. To the south are Greene County agricultural A1 homes. To the east, medium-density single-family residential R1M and Valley Trails Planned Development District PDD. And to the west, medium-density single-family residential R1M. The proposed development plan ensures that incoming properties are adjacent to those of like zoning. Brookside Estates is planned so that owners of existing lots zoned medium-density single-family residential R1M would be assured that only other R1M lots would be created next to them. The land uses permitted in the applicant's proposal are considered to be generally compatible with the surrounding agricultural and residential zone properties and uses in proximity to the subject parcel. Regarding capacity to serve potential development and land use. Municipal water and sewer service. The subject site is in proximity to City of Republic sanitary sewer and water service with existing points of connection to the north, east, and west. Several potential connections are available for both utilities. The development will be served via a looped water system connecting to existing water mains that have points of connection to the north, east, and west. The exact location and size of the water mains required to serve the development will be determined during the infrastructure design process. Effluent from the development would travel to the Schuler Creek lift station before traveling back to the wastewater treatment facility. The water system, proposed lift station, existing lift station, and there is no proposed lift station, that's a typo. The water system, the existing lift station, and the wastewater treatment facility have sufficient capacity to serve the proposed development at full build-out. Regarding transportation, the Brookside Estates proposes 6 new streets facilitating circulation within the subdivision, and then lists them. The development plan extends 4 existing streets. The streets being extended are Hardy, Hadley, Halsey, and Grace Street. The proposed development plan would finish several planned connections to existing neighborhoods to facilitate travel within the city. At each of these connection points, streets were previously stubbed out to the edge of the property to provide future access to the subject property. Completing these roads would create additional routes for both residents and emergency service personnel. Additionally, making these connections will alleviate current conditions along portions of Hardy, Hadley, Halsey, and Grace within Sterling Meadows, where larger vehicles such as fire trucks are unable to turn around and may instead be required to back up as much as 800 feet. Importantly, the development plan includes the construction and dedication of a portion of Grace Street, which will complete the full connection between Lynn Avenue and Main Street as identified in the city's transportation plan. In accordance with policy, the applicant was required to perform a traffic impact study, TIS, to analyze the impact of the traffic generated from the proposed development. The TIS was then reviewed by build staff. The results of the TIS indicate the proposed full build-out of the development will not warrant any traffic improvements. Regarding stormwater, the development plan contains an area designated for stormwater retention detention. designed to accommodate stormwater generated by the development. The location for this area is in the northeast corner of the development as necessitated by the topography of the property. Additional stormwater areas and/or easements may be required through the engineering design process. The stormwater retention detention areas, drainage easements, and all open space common areas will be owned and maintained by the developer and/or property owners association. The subject parcel does not contain any special flood hazard area or floodplain. The subject parcel does not contain any identified sinkholes. The design and precise placement of the streets, sidewalks, water, and sanitary sewer systems and stormwater detention will be reviewed and permitted during the infrastructure permitting process. All developments must include site design providing for sufficient emergency vehicle access as well as fire protection facilities. Additional elements of code compliance evaluated at the time of infrastructure design impacting the development of the subject property include, but are not limited to, the city's zoning regulations, adopted fire code, and adopted building code. The next steps in the process of development of the subject parcel, upon a favorable rezoning outcome, will be the development, review, and approval of an infrastructure permit for the construction of utility services and roads. Staff considers the proposed zoning map amendment, rezoning to planned development district, to be generally consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive and land use plans, generally consistent with the trend of development in the vicinity of the site, generally compatible with surrounding land uses, and able to be adequately served by municipal facilities. Specifically, the proposed development can be adequately served by the city's municipal water and sanitary sewer services and the city's transportation network. Based upon this analysis, performed without the benefit of evidence and testimony of a public hearing, staff recommends the approval of this application. I would also like to draw your attention to the density summary sheet that we provided for you at the beginning of the meeting, as well as placed up there for people to grab handouts, which kind of does a quick breakdown and a visual of some of these lot sizes and information regarding these two subdivisions. I know that's a lot of information to look through in the staff report, so we just kind of broke it down so you can kind of get an idea of it with a visual.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to call first for the applicant or the applicant's representative to come forward if you wish to make any comments to us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lyndall Link, and I'm here to present the development plan for Brookside Estates. As you've heard from staff, Brookside Estates is 40.64 acres with a maximum of 153 lots. Part of it being medium density and part of it being high density. When we get into the density issue of that, you have 48 that are R1M and you have 105 that are high density in the interior. The configuration results in an average lot size of 8,536 square feet and a density of 3.76 lots per acre. This density falls well below the allowable density for R1M. Medium density single family, which is 4.84 lots per acre, is actually closer to the allowable density of R1L, which is low density, which is 3.63 lots per acre. So, I mean, we're at 3.76, low is 3.63, medium is 4.84, and high is 6.2. The proposed drainage and erosion, we put the detention basin up there where it's the low point of the land. Water has been always going across lot 2 and 3 in that subdivision. After several meetings with staff and with the developer and a lot of consideration, there's a 15-foot strip that's part of our land that goes to the north. And we are going to pipe the water up that 15-foot strip to the floodplain. So basically we will get close to eliminating all the water issues that have been going across lot 3 and 2 by doing that. So we're trying to help that out as much as possible. A traffic impact study was done by CJW Transportation Consultants, and one of their representatives is here today that will talk to you about that. The development is being spearheaded by Josh Bryan of Napak Builders. And I can tell you from working with many different developers, the thought and the care that these guys put into their projects will be amazing for everyone. You're also going to hear from a marketing analysis lady by the name of Megan Henry of Alpha Realty. She will talk to you about what the market is calling for as far as lot size out there. In conclusion, the proposed development for Brookside is a balanced approach to growth on what the new lot size requirements are being called for by the new homeowners. We believe that this project will only enhance our community. I live here as well. The fact is, I don't live very far from this site. I would really like to take the time to thank the staff that has worked with us on this. We've had several meetings with them and gone over different things that we think we've come up with the best layout that works for this site. They have been extremely well to work with. So if there's any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them for you guys before I turn it over to the other people that are going to speak.
We'll just move on.
Okay?
I mean, we may have questions, but that's the way it normally works.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Tony Denzer. I work for CJW, so that would be 5051 South National Ave, Springfield. The city staff and the other engineer that were up here did a great job explaining kind of like what this development would bring to you all. My job, basically, the traffic study evaluates any potential impacts that a development could pose on a roadway network. And if the potential impacts are significant, the study is used to determine how impacts can be mitigated with that. All intersections reviewed have a level of service A, and no turn lanes are warranted. And I can also answer any questions now or at a different time.
Thank you. Anyone else for the applicant?
My name is Josh Bryan with Napak Builders. I'm here as a representative for the owners group. I live at 1006 East Camarine in Springfield. Just a quick history. I've operated in this community. I spent 13 years with Herman Lumber Company, so we've been all over the Republic market and then started building within your community just down the road on the way to Springfield. I am here tonight representing the owners group, and this is a unique opportunity because this is a ownership group that currently has never done any projects in Republic or the Springfield area. So they're looking for new opportunities of growth, and so as we were talking about communities that are great to look at, Republic was front and center because of the availability to work with the city and how well it has went for us in our past developments. So they too are very excited about considering it. So I had two thank yous I wanted to say. First to the staff. Obviously you can see that we've had a lot of conversations to get where we are, so I say thank you for the time that's been put in so far to try to kind of help lead us in a direction that works. And then second, I haven't been able to obviously get to all the neighbors, but we have tried to go around and see quite a few and have conversations, and time spent sitting in breakfast nooks and on front porches, even though we've sat on different sides of the fence on some of the issues. I do appreciate the candor and how you have shared. A couple ideas that I wanted to address, if we could, is just the layout and trying to be sensitive to the land use that's there by buffering the established subdivisions that are there with the larger lots before stepping down into the smaller lots. That was per city and staff recommendation, and I think took into account some of the desires of neighbors that were there. Also, it is our desire to bring a product that brings value to the community. So that is what we're looking for. Another thing that we've been asked and we want to try to do is also not to be exclusive builders in the subdivision, but you have quite a few regional builders that are from this area, that this product is great for them to build in also. And there are very few lots available for regional builders who build 5 or 6 a year to be able to come in, and we would love to be able to have those conversations and potentially offer them a place to build, keep their business going. And then lastly, I just would like to say it's our desire to be good neighbors. We want to take and have those conversations and have tried by the areas of buffering lots, connectivity. There has been some conversations that our whole goal was to try to put apartments in the land, and that is not true. That's not what we're after. What you see up there is what the intention is. And so I wanted to say thank you for the time, and hopefully you hear our heart that it is to be good neighbors with the community. Would answer any questions if there are any for us.
Thank you. Anyone else for the applicant?
Hi, I am Megan Henry. I am with Alpha Realty, local realtor. In the last year, I'm just going to share some data real quick. 368 brand new builds total sold in the areas of Ozark, Nixa, Willard, and Republic. 119 of those homes that were sold were in the Republic School District, and 97 of those 119 homes were under 2,000 square feet. The group that's proposing this subdivision development asked me to research and to find data on what homes are selling in Republic. They wanted this data to ensure that their development supports what's needed and desired within the community. Based on the type and number of new homes that have sold in the last year in Republic, as well as homes that I've walked through that are listed by several builders that sold houses in this area last year, it can be suggested that small to average square foot size homes on smaller lots with quality materials and finishes is of high need. Based on market research, I found that there are a high number of people desiring to live in the rural communities outside of Springfield. Despite the interest rate spike in the last year, we are still seeing low inventory, in turn driving home prices up in value, making it a competitive market. There is a need for new development, and specifically in Republic. When I'm comparing properties for clients to ensure that purchase price or selling prices match what the market says, I'm always going to compare apples to apples. For example, I'm not going to take a home that's 2,800 square foot walkout basement home and compare price per square foot with a home that's a single level 1,800 square foot home. I'm going to pull comps that are closest in square footage, compare number of bedrooms and bathrooms, year built if possible, and finishes. This means I may have to dig deeper and further to find what I need to determine the appropriate value. Typically, newly built homes that have sold will drive up the home prices around it, if similar in comparison, because of the price per square foot is higher in today's market. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else for the applicant? Now we turn to those who want to speak, who are opposed to the application. Raise your hand and I'll call on you, and you can come up one at a time and tell us who you are and tell us what your issues are. Okay. First hand I saw was back here, the gentleman back here.
I just had some questions.
Let me say that my intent here is to deviate just a little bit from our procedure. I want to hear from you. I just am giving you a clue here. At the end of all of the comments from anybody that's opposed or has questions about this project, I intend to call the city back to at least see if they can answer some of them, because some of those are maybe functional questions about the ordinances and about what the city allows and doesn't allow. maybe about transportation, maybe a lot of different things. I don't know, but we will in a little bit. So if you hear your question being asked, know that we're going to try and get an answer for that. And I don't need 5 people talking to me particularly about transportation. But if you want to, that's fine. Go ahead, sir. What's your name?
Larry Kennedy, and I live at 622 East Gingerbread Court in Republic.
Thank you.
Well, he answered a couple of my questions I had. I live at Lot 44 in Diamond View Estates. The back property line at my house is 230 feet. And lots 132, 133, and 134 are all abutting the back of my property line. I was wanting to ask a question. Is there any possibility that they could make those lots more the size of the lot that we have, so that we don't have 3 people abutted to the back of our property line?
Okay.
And if that's not possible, maybe consider putting green spaces in at the places that abut the lots that border this. I guess that's all I have. I'd like to speak to Brian, if I can, after the meeting. I have to get permission, right?
Not for me.
Oh, I thought it said I had to get permission from them.
Not for me.
Okay, I'm done
I
then.
encourage anybody that has questions to ask. It seemed that the developers were very interested in trying to contact the neighboring people, and that
nobody came to
facilitates.
see me.
You know,
I'm sorry. I wish they had.
Well, the city definitely likes to have everybody
Being that they're going to
talk
have
at
3
least.
lots abutting me, I wish they'd have come to see me. Thank you.
I think you may get a visit. Okay. Any other persons who are opposed to the application that wish to speak? Yes, ma'am.
I'm at 522 East Grace.
And your name?
Lois Sub.
All right.
In May, my husband and I will be here 5 years. And we liked it here because you can breathe. We came from across the river from New York. We were only 20 minutes away. So we experienced all the 9/11 stuff that happened. We lived it. And we came out here, and it's starting all over again. It's just, you can see it. We ride around. Here we go. We have a beautiful home. It's more than doubled in price. It's a pretty street. Each house is individual. Yeah, it's a dead end. And it's just a pleasant neighborhood. And when we moved, we were worried about the field. And our neighbor across the street, he was actually the first house on the block. That was 20 years ago. And here we are. And to say the least, we're not happy with it at all. And when you come to a place, it took a while to get used to living in an area like this. I mean, we came from the Northeast, we're now in the middle of the country. A lot has happened in 4 or 5 years, a lot. Devastating things have happened. And I'm just trying to breathe. And I know you could care less, and it's all about, my husband's a home inspector, he can tell you, for over 30 years. And it's just a shame. You're overbuilding and everything, it's cookie cutter. You look down the street, you see boxes, garages. Where's the doorway? What happened to the door? It's supposed to welcome you into your home. You can't even find it. I don't get it. And I don't know if we'll stay here. A lot of people stop and ask, would you sell your home? I get that. We get letters in the mail, would you sell our home? I take pride in what I do, and I'm good at it, and it shows. And now here we go. You're going to do what you want anyway. But I just have to I'm here to voice my opinion. And I don't know, they mentioned a sinkhole. The sinkhole is there. I spoke to Chris Tabor. We had a conversation. He urged me to come and speak my mind. And a sinkhole's a sinkhole. And they had it on top of the rock, and it's quite deep. So I spoke my mind.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name's Henry. 522 East Grace. Now, the point, I guess, to caveat what my wife was trying to say is that you're overdeveloping this town like ridiculous. You ride around, there's so many different developments going up. You don't need this thing going up either. I like living on a dead-end street. With this thing going up, well, there goes the dead-end street. Plus, I feel it's going to raise the crime rate because now everybody has an avenue. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but people now have an avenue to go from one side to the other, from here to over to Lynn. So they're going to be able to scope our house out a lot easier, in other words. If you're living on a dead end, that doesn't happen, because most of the time they're not going to do that. So my concern is not only overdeveloping this town, but also the crime rate is probably going to go up. It's just like anything else. You stuff too many people in a small area, crime rate goes up. It's common sense. That's the same thing what's happening here. And with all these tiny little lots, chances are the caliber of people is going to be different also. The caliber of people is going to be like you have going up on the other side. Well, I can't forget the name of that development, where they're going for 200,000. The caliber of people there is different also, which again encourages more crime rate, because now it's not the same neighborhood. You understand what I'm saying? I hope I'm clear on this, because my big concern is not only crime rate, but these small lots that you have going up also encourages that type of caliber of person to move in. Now, we already had sorry, our son was murdered in Republic 4 years ago. And I'm sorry, I can't go on.
Thank you. Sorry for your loss. Sorry it happened in Republic. Is there any other persons, any other people that want to speak who are opposed to the application? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Matt Hughes. I live at 1079 South Henry. I kind of want to speak a little bit on the crime rate alone. We have a Facebook page for our community, and recently there's been several kids, young men, who find it's funny to set off fireworks in the middle of the night, knocking on people's doors. And I know kids will be kids. I get it. But when you bring in these high-density homes, you get more of this. And we moved to this community because we looked at many houses over Springfield, Nixa, you name it. We chose Republic because when we stood on our street, we were like, anybody live here? We didn't. It was so peaceful, so quiet. And this lot, this 40 acres behind us, is literally my backyard. And I have enjoyed the wildlife, watching deer, and I love to hit golf balls out into that big field, which I know I won't be able to do forever, but until then, you may get a few more golf balls out there. I welcome building to our community. I welcome the growth. I would like for it to stay the homes like we have. We have a nice brick home just right down the road. They're building these siding homes, which just decrease the value of our home. It doesn't, and it's just their eyesores. We had a pre-planned, I want to say it was 75, 80 homes, I think, before the previous builders sold to the builders that have bought it, and now they want to put 153. It's just too much. It really is. I mean, why can't we stick? I mean, I welcome the building. But why can't we stick to the original plan? Build some nice houses in there. Increase all of our homes, our values, and I mean that's really all I have to say. Is I mean I'm concerned about the traffic, the crime, and the value of our homes, which is our investment. I mean, we don't have a whole lot, and this home is our nest egg, and we'd like to keep it a good nest egg. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Back in the corner.
Hi, my name is Jim Schwab, and I live on 634 East Ginger Big Court. And when my wife and I bought our home 10 years ago, we looked at several subdivisions. We moved from St. Louis, and we looked at River Cut, we looked at Fremont Hills, and the lady from Murney showed us the house in Republic. And River Cut's a nice subdivision, but the lots that were available are on top of each other. And so we bought in Republic because there's so much green space. There's so much openness about it. And we love that about Republic. And if you look out on our backyard, you can see a field in the top of the place right there. But I'm going to approach this from a totally different angle right now. Every year since we moved here, every year we get a notice from Southern Star Gas Company, or a gas pipeline, that says, please do not dig where this gas pipeline is. And that gas pipeline runs all the way down on that green space there. And it has made very clear, Southern Star has, that there could be a huge explosion which impacts the entire neighborhood if anybody cuts that gas pipeline accidentally. And so every time somebody mows the field behind us, we always kind of cringe because they come real close to the gas pipeline top there. And so I would propose that if you must go through with this subdivision, at least keep green space around it so that it keeps the natural feel, plus people don't accidentally dig that gas pipeline and cause a catastrophe in the neighborhood. And that's the angle I'm going to approach, because it is a hazard to everyone living in this area. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Anyone else opposed who wishes to speak? So, okay.
My name is Sheila Johnson. I live at 942 East Grace Street. So I've been having Valley Trails go behind me. I'm also a realtor. I'm a top producing realtor. And what I'm finding is that I've had, just in the last couple of months, I have had clients look at the house at the end of Erin and they chose not to buy because all this was going in there. I have sold the house at 965 East Grace, the Hyde's home, because they don't want to deal with the traffic going through. I just put under contract another house on Grace Street because the people don't want to deal with the traffic going through. Grace, if you make that a thoroughfare, which I know is going to happen, And I'm all about growth. I will hold the houses behind us in Valley Trails open, but the biggest thing I get is there's not 4-bedroom homes. Those houses aren't selling because they're 3-bedroom homes. I have people have me door knock our neighborhood because no one wants to leave our neighborhood because we have a sanctuary. It's very rare that homes come up, and now we're having a few on Grace Street because everybody's worried about the traffic flow. You know, just being on the end of Grace Street, I've experienced just those 6 houses that Cantrell's put in. The traffic from the building has been horrendous, flat tires, that type of thing that we've dealt with. I've had to call the police a few times because we've had contractors going 60 miles per hour. When they started building back there, someone stole my trailer off of my driveway when I was gone one weekend. If you want to speak about crime, because the fact you bring contractors, the high amount of activity, more people see your things, the crime does go up. I am all about building our community, but we already have Trendsetter, Cronkite, D9 Construction. I could name you a dozen different builders that are building in this 200 to 300, but I can tell you, I'm on Facebook realtor pages where there's so many people looking at 2,000 to 2,400 square foot price range that are wanting a quality built home. They're wanting the all brick home. We have a sanctuary in our neighborhood. And when I bring buyers there, they're like, oh my gosh, how did I not know this was there? It's such a unique, special thing. And that's one of the things that drew us to Republic. We moved here for almost 6 years ago. After looking for 2 years, and we found Valley Park Estates, and we just fell in love. We love it that our neighbor stripes all the yards. Everything is so green. You know, we've dealt with the issues with the water going into the pond, the overflow, and concerns. I've seen personally many times when it rains heavy, Grace, where they've extended it out, just completely floods, and then the dirt goes through. So then you have this mud pit that everybody's bringing down the street. I'm all about building, but we need to have larger lots so there's room where we're had room for drainage and water, where we are not. If we put all these small $200,000 houses on these little tiny lots, it is going to devalue the homes in Diamond View Estates, in Valley Parks Estates, and even Valley Trails. Those homes, if we have all these lower priced homes going through our streets, it is going to devalue our homes. It's what I do for a living, and it will. I'm seeing it constantly. So I'm all about growing in Republic, but Miller and Lynn, they've become crazy busy, and they're going through Hadley, Halsey. I have a house on Halsey as well. I'm an investor as well, and the traffic going out on Fountain, it is bad over there, and this is before any of this is put in. So, traffic studies aside, I've seen multiple wrecks coming out, people, because they just pop over those hills, and there's already so much traffic. So I'm not against developing it. We just need to have larger lots, less in there, more space. So thanks for hearing me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Rick Atwell. I live at 623 East Gingerbread Court. I have been a real estate agent, Better Homes and Gardens, and have been a real estate investor myself for about 15 years now. And I moved from New York also to retire here and help my mother, being an only child, to look after her. And we've found a really nice, private, cozy lot, number 44 on the map, Diamond View Estates. The rental houses that I have in the what I call starter home neighborhoods, I had about 20 of them at one point. I didn't know what covenants were about when I first started with my real estate plan here. And a lot of these houses that I bought were not in areas that had covenants. So all of a sudden, I was finding I had starter homes with trailers sitting in the middle of the yard and wrecked cars on the side of the house, 3 basketball courts standing in the driveway, and they were a mess. Now, if I look at this and I see all of these yellow starter homes up against these lower density homes, I can't imagine anybody wanting to buy one of those more expensive homes, looking at a lot that has got 3 basketball courts in the driveway and 4 wrecked cars in the backyard and a boat sitting in the middle of the front yard. I think that this is such a disastrous approach for Republic. I've been so proud to live here, and I've been so proud of my home, and all of a sudden I'm going to be looking out here at this less than pleasant neighborhood. And if I, in my wildest fantasy, had to go to extremes, I would stand out there in the middle of this field when I saw the first dirt digger coming in and stand there and raise a flag and said, "You'll have to run over me if you're going to do this." So I would like to know about covenants, and I'd also like to know, why is there no green space allocated here? Why is there no green space at all allocated here? And I think all of us who are rubbing up against this new neighborhood should have the opportunity to buy this green space, and especially, as my neighbor Jim pointed out, those areas that have got that gas line running through them. You're putting the entire neighborhood at risk here. Then I also question what it's doing to the value, as the lady who was just here spoke, what it's doing to the value of our neighborhood. Being in real estate for a lot of years, I understand location, location, location. And this completely deteriorates location, 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 which is the reason I bought my house here, because I was in a great location, location, location. Now I will not be. And now I will be selling my house and finding someplace else to go. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Good evening. My name's Jennifer Worley. I'm at 975 East Jared Street. And I just wanted to express some of the same concerns that my neighbors had. One is the increased traffic concerns. Even with the handful of houses that have been built at the end of Gray Street, we've all noticed considerable traffic increase. A lot of very fast-moving cars. We have a neighborhood full of young families with lots of small children that are always outside playing, because we do have a lot of green space in our neighborhood, a lot of friendly neighborhood interaction, and these cars are just flying down our streets on Grace and Jared in particular. Again, like many people have said, we're concerned about the decreased property values with all of these, what I'm assuming would be starter homes coming in, decreasing the property values of a lot of our houses. We're also concerned about the water control and the drainage issues that might come about with building this high of a density in that area. You probably are aware of the floodplain that runs through Valley Park Estates. They have in recent years, they improved the bridge that goes under Lynn. That helped a little bit, but we still have some pretty high flooding when we have heavy rains there. Even with Valley Trails coming in, that has increased the drainage that comes into Schuler Creek there. And I'm very concerned with building this high, how they're going to control that water and not cause more flooding onto the properties along Schuler Creek there. I think Republic's a beautiful community. I've lived here for over 20 years and raised all my children here. I see a lot of new starter homes coming in, which I think is great, and it's bringing young families to the community. But I don't see a lot of mid-range houses coming in, and I really think that this would be a good opportunity to build more mid-range and not more starter homes, which we have so many of. When those new families that are in those homes now need to move up when their families grow, there isn't really any place for them to go, and I'm afraid they'll be leaving the community instead of growing the community. That's kind of my summary, and I just hope that you'll consider decreasing the density of this.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Mike Brightwell. I live on 933 South Henry. Happens to be the lot number 3 that the gentleman was talking about that gets a lot of runoff. Primarily tonight, that was my biggest concern, was to ask questions about how that will work. Sounds like they have somewhat of a plan. My biggest concern, I guess, even with that plan, the already approved layout that's kind of set from Valley Trails, there was a lot of green space still left to take on some of the water and the rain and to absorb a lot of that in green space with trees and yards and a lot more green space to absorb some of that water. Biggest concern I have is this density are all rooftops and streets. There's not going to be much yard or green space to soak up any of that water. I realize there's a basin there. Hopefully, I guess in the plan, I hope that that's going to be big enough in the planning, and the engineers will be able to handle that kind of water. Primarily, the biggest thing I'm concerned about is the image of Republic. I grew up in Springfield my whole life of 39 years, and Republic was always thank you. Republic was always known, as we were growing up, as the Tapjack community. You know, some of the people who've been around for years will remember that. This was always the Tapjack community. It was always cookie cutter homes, small, I guess would be considered high density. And a lot of those those neighborhoods and things are really deteriorating right now with that size of houses. And I'm just worried about the image of Republic. We moved to Republic because we kind of took a look several years ago and thought Republic's actually getting away from this image of this just cookie cutter community, and it's really nice. We started looking at some of the neighborhoods, and it was really nice. There was green space. It was just a lot nicer homes in our opinion. So that's our biggest concern, is getting back into this cookie cutter, small, don't want to live in a Tapjack community anymore. So that's my biggest concern. There's engineering concerns with us being in that lot, but obviously we can talk to them on a more individual basis about that. But that's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Just, if you would, just sign the sheet.
Well, I wasn't going to talk. I was.
Give me your name.
Oh, sorry, Cara Jennings, 541 East Hadley. I lived outside of Republic. It was Springfield city limits, but it was Republic School District, and on 10 acres back like 10 years ago. And I had a special needs daughter, and I had the 10 acres. I couldn't deal with it. Too much upkeep. So I'm a mail carrier. Dang it. And I saw this house on Hadley, and I'm like, this is it, So called my realtor, and I signed on it that day. I'd already put my house up for sale. Anyway, and I love the farm, the 10 acres. We had bluebirds. We had all sorts of stuff. So we moved here, and I'm like, wow, look at this. It's kind of like I haven't moved. I still have this big old, because I live right on the edge here where that gas line is. Anyway, so I'm like, well, this is nice. I can sit out there and watch the deer or we've had fox there, all sorts of things, all sorts of turkeys, all sorts of wild animals that, I love. And anyway, this is going to when I heard about it, I was so upset, because it's like, it just sucks. Because, I was like, I've come a long way, me and my daughter. And plus, a dead end, she has special needs, and I feel safe with her if I had to leave her alone or something when she was younger. I felt safe because it was a dead end street. I mean, you knew the neighbors, and they were kind of watching out too for us. And also, even now the parking now, sometimes I drive by there and she has medical issues too. And if she needed an ambulance, which she had before when she was younger, cars are parked both sides of the street. And I know that's not supposed to happen, but so what's this going to exasperate the problem of that? And plus this gas line is right. I guess I didn't realize it was so, that scares me now too. But so I'm afraid to even, build a hole, dig a hole for my flowers because of this, I got signs all over my yard, gas line and everything. So that's a big concern that I didn't even realize with building of all this. So anyway, just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Steve Owsley, and I live at 957 South Henry. And I'd like to second the concerns several other people have mentioned already, and I'll just repeat on them. One is the density. With 100 of these smaller homes, it's going to generate at least 300 cars, if you think about it. And like she said, the smaller home doesn't have storage. What's someone going to do before they move out of it? They're going to start using the garage. Cars are in the driveway or on the streets. And so without the appropriate size home just to start with, people are going to overgrow and it's just going to turn over. You know what I'm saying? These homes are not for very long use if you have to stay with such a small lot and a small property. Currently, there is no green space, as someone mentioned. There's no park. There's no place to play. These kids will have small yards. They'll have places where they can't even play catch, really. And so they'll be forced to play in the street. And so all these streets are through streets. So all the traffic is constantly moving both directions all day long. And you're trying to have kids out there, playing to have fun in the summer. So that was two of my concerns. One is also the traffic that's going to go down all these streets to go back to Main Street. That's a half a mile of a driveway for all these lots. So everyone is going to have to deal with all these cars going up and down those already existing homes. And, if these homes are of less value, it's going to be detracting. Whereas if these homes were actually of higher value and would be worth having on your driveway, you'd be excited about it. But I personally would not be excited at all. And I feel unfortunate for all those people that, bought this home and think that they can stay there. And then all of a sudden they're going to have, this large property that's going to be served by all these smaller homes at lesser price and potentially have rentals. I mean, when someone moves out of those homes, it could be a high rental area. And so it's a big change. When we moved here, Republic did have, as you mentioned, all these lots or these properties around this facility is all large, medium density, if you will, subdivisions. And so this is really not making a neighborhood, with no place for kids to play. How are these also going to get, back to Miller Park? We have a great park, places for kids to go and, and bike to it. I know at one time they had talked about having some type of continuation. Currently, they have to go out and go across Lynn and go. It's not a very good situation to get pedestrians or bikes back up to Miller Park. And so right now I'm concerned about that too. How are we going to, allow these kids to play and how to have them get around? And so if the city could consider with all the traffic that goes around all this growth, how they're going to get cars up and around and easily handle the pedestrian traffic as well and or bikes. I'd be really excited about it. Grace is is definitely limited because of its size. It's not 3 lanes, it's not wide, it's not designed for all this construction traffic, let alone, 300 new cars coming up and down. We've had on Lynn Street, this construction traffic has already taken out signs at the pedestrian crosswalk. Our road is really narrow there. And so I don't know where this traffic study comes along and says that everything's fine and happy. But, Lynn is not a safe place to walk if you want to even get across the street. Also, the traffic study regarding US Highway 60 and Main Street. I mean, that's a really serious intersection. I think all these homes, if they're younger with kids, they're going to have to get to school somehow. And how are they going to get to all our schools, which are on the north side of town? They're going to have to cross this federal highway as well as cross the railroad tracks and do that every day, every school day, back and forth all the time. And so it's just not a good location. When someone said location, 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 this development would work great on the north side of town, close to the schools and close to all the shops. Kids could walk where they need to go, and moms could do the same thing. Here you're isolating them out here in the middle of the farthest south property, if you will, in Republic, and expecting them to meet their needs, without taking care of the kids. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
I just got to add something. That's actually a good point, because you're looking at 150 something houses, and you're looking at 2 cars per house roughly. So you're looking at 300 something cars with only three, maybe 4 avenues to get out. But so now what? So now you got 300 cars running back and forth. Again, safety, crime, and all that stuff. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay.
Plus, one more thing. Why is it, and I don't understand, I've been a home inspector for 31 years in New Jersey. When I retired, we moved out here, and I thought, geez, Republic would be a nice place. And, I always liked it. It was very quaint. Until you guys started making all these developments. There's got to be, a dozen developments going up in town? Something like that, I think. Well, each development that I go through, when you ride down that street, all you see are garages. You don't even see the front door. The front door is always hidden. So it looks more like a storage facility than a neighborhood, because all you have are these garages all the way down the road. That's it.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Let's get some change.
That's good.
I'll be short. My name is Tim Hill. I live at 981 Henry. I think you can pick up that Henry backs right after this. And we have the green space we have. If you look on the right, if you saw a picture of that, you would see that there's trees there, there's the privacy line. I think there's supposed to be a greenway going through there and a pathway going through there. So you're hearing a lot of discussion from the people on Henry and on Grace, on the east side of the division Grace. I guess my concern is, I think I heard one of the people talking from Springfield said that they've been out and talked to people on front porch. I've talked with most everybody on Henry and some other streets. I have not seen anybody out walking our neighborhood. So I would like to know where they've been walking and talking to people, because I've seen no evidence of it. So I would like to know when that's happened and where it's happened.
I bet that before the meeting's over, anybody that wants to be talked with, the developers will. I'm pledging your time, gentlemen, but we're all for, and I've seen this happen. I've been on this commission for a long time, and we've seen a lot of issues where neighborhoods are feeling pinched or concerned, and people have concerns about their houses and their value of their houses, and we understand that. I lived here for 44 years, and so of my 39 years, I've lived here 44. And yes, we'd like to see the developers, and especially in larger projects, come around and talk to anybody. And I'm sure it was advertised early on that he wanted to. So, I suspect he'll be outside and collecting names or phone numbers.
I'm sure he is now, so, and the address, so. I guess, I agree with most everybody in here. To put 200, as far as the low density, I see all the housing that's going up along Miller, along the county line, up north of schools. I think it's Main Street, going north. I see 6, 7 different high-density subdivisions. And I would express the concern, how many of these do we need? I know Amazon came in here, but they're not bringing that many people in to need 500 new starter homes for Republic. These will turn into rentals real quickly. So not only will they be lower value, they'll turn into rental because people don't want to be there, or they'll leave Amazon, or something else will go on with it. So I'm concerned about that. Plus all the water, like I think our neighbor Mike said, or one of them, that all those houses, when you go high density, there's no yard. All that water is going to run off. So the flooding that's happening down through the creek will just flood. There's not going to be an answer for that. Even that retention pond won't be enough to cover it in the springs, when we get the rains. And we've had those rains every spring up through May. So those are my concerns. I echo a lot of what we have, but I also would like to know what areas they say they've talked to.
I can't answer that question. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Anyone else? She's already up.
My name is Glenda Owsley. I live at 957 South Henry. I'm lot number 4 that's going to back up to the retention pond. And I have a question about, right now we have a lot of trees along that fence line, and it is a huge, I can't see into that field in the summer. Are you going to come mow those trees down so that I just look at a sea of houses all the time? I have a walkout basement, and I'm going to be staring at 150 houses. You leave the trees up, I can't see them. So I don't know the plan. It seems to be people come in, just cut down all the trees. And so I would like to see those trees stay to offer some sort of buffer. He did talk about that, a buffer between the two neighborhoods. And then secondly,
May I ask you a question? Are those trees on the adjoining property?
they're at the fence line. There's a barbed wire fence.
Okay.
We didn't put a fence up. So there's a barbed wire fence that separates our yard and all that property. There's a barn back there.
It grew up in that fence.
And they are huge privacy. It's awesome. So we can't really see. That would be a great buffer to be able to keep there between the two neighborhoods. So I know the city can't tell them they have to keep them there, but that would be a pretty good
Well,
faith.
if it's on your property.
I don't think it is. I think it's at the fence line, so I don't know where it falls. But that would be a pretty good faith reach out to leave those trees as a privacy. Secondly, too, I just want to comment on these traffic studies. As a person that goes through the intersection of 60 and Main every day, the traffic is horrible. There needs to be left turn lanes there for people that are on Main Street turning left onto 60. I can sit through that light sometimes 3 times in the morning to get to work. Because I'm turning left, I'm on Main, and I'm turning left by the Driver's License Bureau to go into that shopping center. So I don't understand these traffic studies because there is a lot of traffic, and I can't imagine adding 300 more vehicles into that mix. So, and let me sign this. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, he wants to know how they get to Walmart, too.
Anyone else? Somebody over here. Okay. Yes, sir.
My name's Dave Stocker. I live to the south of the south property line. On 5 acres of ground, I've been there 30 years. Just a couple of things I'd like to make sure of. The first thing is, I seem to remember the prior subdivision zoning approval did not include any kind of density like you're talking about with these yellow shades. seemed to me that I assume the green lots are going to have larger homes that'd be higher value. I don't know if they're going to be brick or not, but I seem to remember Valley getting approval for what would be larger lots, larger homes, what might not affect property values as much. And I'm not quite sure why we have to have this density that we're having with the yellow lots in the middle. I know more lots sometimes means more profit can be made. However, what is wrong with leaving the zoning the way it already is when Valley got their approval, leaving the homes having larger lots, the homes having larger size, and would also cut down the traffic problems many people are talking about. Instead of having 300 cars, you might have something like 150 or less. And I don't know why the zoning has to be changed from what Valley already had in mind, which was basically a more valuable neighborhood that would not affect the people traffic-wise or in reselling their own home if they decide to, or if it's a nest egg like the gentleman mentioned earlier. I think it's going to downgrade that part of the public. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the values of all these people have talked about. And it seems like people say Republic's being overbuilt. It probably is. That's going on in other places also. But it seems to me the people that live there have already invested their money, their lives, and their mortgages in these larger properties. These larger homes have the right to have the same kind of zoning they built upon next to them. The only other thing I had was, as far as my own property line goes, it has had a fence on it for, I guess, 33 years that I helped to pay for. The prior owner was incensed that he had more land than the fence that was already there. This is way back in the early 90s. So my neighbors and I gave up 2 to 3 feet of ground to him. He put up the new fence at that time. What I want to make sure is that that fence line is the border, or considered the border by the new builder, or their property line and my property line, because there's a very nice stand of trees there, and I want to keep my trees. So that's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Joyce Elaine Dawkins. I live at 651 South Conroy Street, and it's actually north of this neighborhood. It connects up to Aaron's Way. I live partially in the flood zone, and I'd like to know how this water runoff is going to affect that flood zone down there. We get quite a bit of rain down through there. You guys have put in extensive money into the sewer systems and rerouting of the water down there the last year and a half. And I was wondering how this is going to affect it, if I'm going to get more flooding down in that area or not. That's all I got.
I'm sure someone will talk about it from the city. There are rules with respect to development when you develop property and how it affects the property on the side that's going to get the water coming off of the property. So, thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
This isn't the best shot, but this is my home. And
I'm sorry, you're going to have to speak at the podium, and we'll let everyone go once. And if the commission has any further questions, they will ask you to come back to the podium.
this is my home, and I want to be able to keep it. And when you come from the north and you have property 50 by 100, and you come here, and this is what you find, in a beautiful neighborhood and beautiful neighbors, they're there for you. And now, this is what it's turning into. We've been there, we've done that, and let me tell you, it's just not, it's not good. And it's the money. Everything's about the money. Some things are not about the money.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, close the, not close the hearing, but you got a list to talk about?
Andrew Nelson, I'm oops, I'm breaking the microphone. I'm the Assistant City Administrator, resident engineer at the moment for the City of Republic. I want to try to answer as many questions as we can tonight, just on the list that I took notes. And I want to start with talking a little bit about density. So specifically when it comes to home and type of home relative to density, the city does not in any way regulate the type of home that can be built on any lot of any size. So what I don't want people to confuse is that if we had a larger lot, that it would change the type of home by some sort of regulation. The owner or the builder of that lot can build any style of home. And matter of fact, on the current PDD, any home, whether you call it a starter home or midpoint or what they're building today, could be built in Valley Trails. There is no regulation about that PDD that prevents that. So I want to clear that up as far as density goes. When it comes to types of homes in the city, the city doesn't necessarily monitor an inventory of certain price thresholds of homes either. What we do look at, and the council will ask me on occasion about the inventory of homes in the City of Republic, is the median income of our city and what type of home that the city can afford. So what I would tell you about the starter home is that about 80% of our population can afford that and that only. And that only 20% can afford more than that based on the median household income in Republic, which is about $60,000. So just a clarification there, we don't really monitor an inventory of homes. Really the market drives, I think, probably what the builders are building and who can afford what type of home. In regard to stormwater, through the infrastructure engineering, what we'll require is that the release is no different than it is pre-development, meaning that they'll have to produce a detention that creates a no-rise scenario. I think the developer mentioned one of the concepts was to pipe the release from the detention, which is controlled, away from the adjoining lots into the floodplain, which is not required. So that's something that they've added in as an extra control measure when it comes to stormwater. In regard to the traffic study, the trip generation seems like a lot when you look at a subdivision on its own. When you go to an intersection like 60 and Main or P, you're talking about thousands of cars a day, so it takes a lot to impact or change the effectiveness of an intersection. So if that intersection functions at what MoDOT would consider a level of service of C, a development of this size is not likely to change that because the trip generation when you're looking at that intersection is in the thousands of cars a day. So will it impact it? Probably yes. Will it change its level of service? The traffic study says that it will. The Southern Star gas line, that's something that through the infrastructure permitting that we're highly cognizant of. It's just a reminder that travels through a number of subdivisions in this town. So it is a concern that we've dealt with as a staff that inspects these developments. We're cognizant of that, and I'm certain that the builder is too. There is a sizable risk you are to damage that and a liability, so they're highly cognizant of it as well. The Gray Street connection, Gray Street's identified on the major thoroughfare plan as a through route for the city. Generally, we try to have east, west, and north, south connectivity through the major thoroughfares of the city, and Gray Street is one of those east-west connections that what we would tell you is needed. when you look at a development like this and the connections that it makes, the idea of connecting as many places as possible is so that we can disperse the traffic to as many places as possible to create the least amount of impact. And generally, when you see a subdivision with a dead-end street that's not a cul-de-sac, that was left there as a requirement of the city. Our ordinances require generally that the subdivisions leave or make connections in cardinal directions. Plan for the transportation. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but we'll go back and we'll watch all of the comments, and we'll try to provide answers with the council report as well when we give the report to the council. But if there's anything else, I'll
I have a
take that.
question
Yep.
about the gas line. It looks to me from the plat that there are 10 lots that in some way abut the easement on that gas line. And it looks to me like also that the gas line's marked, but then there's an easement on either side of it that I'm assuming is a no-build. I mean, can't build on it.
There is a 50-foot on each side of that is the no build. So there is a 100-foot swath going through that area, just like there is in Sterling Meadows and Diamond View, which is why you have, where that pipeline is, larger lots.
But I mean, I'm not minimizing it, but it's running through the northwest, I guess, corner of the subdivision, or
it runs through a number of subdivisions all throughout the city, and there is Southern Star, the holder of that pipeline. They work with us on any of these subdivisions. They'll come out and they'll be on site, and they're very involved in the process. The contractors are familiar with what's required when they go out there and they build. So it's not a process that's foreign to anyone.
No basements.
You can assume that.
Not right now, sir. I'm sorry.
Do you have any details about how deep that pipeline is?
Oh, that's a good question. I do not. Do you all?
Southern Star does have that information, and it varies at different places, but that is something that we work with them during the design of the infrastructure. So we haven't got into that yet. They've obviously reviewed this as they review any preliminary plans for subdivision, and we'll get that profile information as we go further along.
I won't attest to this location, but the last time we encountered it was at 6 feet.
Let me see if there's anything else.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how many R1H lots are currently being built or have been lately?
I have that information. I don't have that on me. I could provide that though pretty quickly. Possibly if you just give me a few minutes during this meeting.
We did have a question regarding CC and Rs, and I do want to address that just very quickly. The city does not regulate nor require covenants or restrictions. That is up to the developer. They can establish particular parameters that they are wanting regarding landscaping, building materials, the aesthetic of a particular neighborhood, which they will include in a CC&R document, which would then be recorded. Any person building in that neighborhood would have to adhere to those regulations, but it is not something regulated or reviewed by the city.
Buffering.
With that,
yes.
Turn your mic off.
with that, does the builder plan on having any covenants in state for this development?
That I don't know. I would have to ask the developer if they plan on having an HOA or any covenants or restrictions.
They are required to have an HOA or property homeowners association. I would imagine that they will. But again, that's not going to be something that's reviewed or required by the city, but we can certainly get follow-up information and provide that at the next council meeting.
I went ahead and looked up that information real quick. So we currently have 130 R1H lots that are being built right now, and then 62 of those that are vacant. And that was as of the beginning of February.
Not in this area, though. North?
The rest of Republic.
In Republic.
Yeah, in Republic.
Yeah.
But it's north of this.
Up
Up North Main?
Some of those would be in the hills of Old Savannah, which is just south of existing Old Savannah, kind of south of the lakes of Schuler.
Okay.
That area. And then the others would be in the northeast.
Of that 130, whatever it was, those are completed? All of those are like recently completed?
So the 62 number, that is what's recently completed.
Gotcha.
The 130 are under construction in some form or another.
Gotcha. Thank you.
We did have another question from the gentleman from the property to the south regarding the fence and the tree line. I would encourage you to reach out to the developer and have that particular discussion. But again, if the trees are located on your property, they obviously cannot be removed as part of this potential development. But if they are located on the developer's property, they would have the opportunity to remove those if they needed to. I can tell you the majority of times working with developers, if there are existing natural buffers and sometimes even existing fencing, typically they want to reuse as much as possible and keep any type of mature vegetation and tree line to provide a buffer so that they don't have to go in there and do additional work on landscaping.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, almost, if not all of the bordering property, except for, this is Greene County down here, I think.
Correct.
But on the three sides are, would be R1M.
Correct. There was a specific question regarding zoning adjacent. So all of the green lots that you're seeing on the map in front of you, those are the ones that are particular to the R1M. And all of the lots on the west, the north, and the east are also have the same zoning. So the zoning of the inside perimeter of this subdivision and the zoning of the perimeter of the adjacent subdivisions, the zoning is the same. The only difference would be the zoning to the south, where that is actually property located in Greene County, and it is agricultural property. There was also a question regarding the impact on the floodplain. I do serve as the city's floodplain manager. There is no potential impact or additional rise that we are expecting from the stormwater outflow from the detention basin directly into the floodplain. I don't anticipate any type of no-rise certificates or additional engineering would be required, as the stormwater that naturally flows from this site does go to the floodplain that is adjacent.
I had a couple other questions that were brought up that I'd like to address. The gentleman who owned lot 44 of Diamond Valley Estates, if you could go to the next page on this. So his concern was with 3 lots behind him. I just want to reiterate the size. Would it be possible to zoom in where that text is? It can't be read here. That text on the picture, please. I just want to reiterate the size of the lots that are required in this subdivision are much larger than the size that are required in the existing subdivision. The existing subdivision allows for lots that are 50 foot across, and it has no minimum requirement for the depth of the lots. So if you go over to Valley Trails, you'll see several lots that are 60 feet across. In some cases, people buy 2 lots just to make a normal size lot and build there. So this is just a demonstration of how many houses could be, this is a a house I took. It's from Sterling Meadows. Just a demonstration of how many of those houses could back up on you. With a 15-foot backyard setback, that house could sit 6 feet to your fence and then 15 feet to its backyard. The project that's being proposed has a 25-foot setback, and along this area, those houses would sit on lots that are at least 80 feet wide. So the argument that the lots are larger for this for Valley Trails is definitely not the case. There is a very small minimum lot size. There's actually no minimum lot size. It could be as small as they could make it. We had a number of people talking about the dead-end streets that they live on. I just want to point out that the city, as Andrew had mentioned, requires those streets to be stubbed during the building of those subdivisions as they are intended to connect to the property that they go into. They're not dead-end streets in the sense that they're intended to be there forever, because there's no fire turnaround. When we do a dead-end street, just for general information, where that is, it'll be a cul-de-sac or it'll have a hammerhead so that a fire truck can turn around there. That's one of the most important differences between a dead end and a real street end, is that emergency services can track that.
Ma'am, we need to stay on topic with addressing the person at the podium.
Another thing that we talked about, someone had brought up the sinkhole. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that Greene County, the geological department at Greene County, has gone out in the field and assessed that. What was shown on the assessor's map as a sinkhole, they do not believe it meets the criteria of the sinkhole. They are the individuals with the expertise in the area, and we rely on them. The developer worked with them to make sure and to do some general study on that to assure that that wasn't a sinkhole. The assessor's site, if it hasn't already, will be removing that sinkhole in the future. That's their judgment, not the judgment of the city.
At the same time, this is the land of sinkholes. You live in southwest Missouri, you know that. So it's just the limestone underneath the ground there. It washes out eventually, and you get a sinkhole.
There is no sinkhole.
I'm sorry?
In the past, it was shown at the end of Connor Way. Or Aaron Way, I'm sorry.
Some other questions came up about traffic, particularly like parking on multiple sides of the street, and also with pedestrian access back to other locations such as the park. Could you address any of those?
Yeah, that's one I had noted here. So as far as pedestrian traffic goes, the city's in the process of improving pedestrian access along Lynn. I think Old Savannah or Savannah Heights filled in a gap from a portion of Lynn, but there's still a gap. Councilmember Fields and I have talked about that the city intends to facilitate, so you would have full north-south travel on Lynn and connect these developments there. That will get you to the community center. Certainly something the city is continuing to endeavor on. We are sorely short on sidewalk.
Our subdivision regulations do require all local streets, though, to have a sidewalk on one side of the street. So that will happen internally to the subdivision, as is required by all subdivisions.
That's what these white lines are, right? That's what those white lines are, right?
Yes, if you've got a copy
Correct.
of the development plan, you can see where kind of the orangish looking line is where they've got sidewalks. So on the south side of Grace, as an example.
Okay, let's move on. I'm going to close the hearing. The hearing, I'm sorry. If you have questions at this point, you need to you're going to direct them someplace else.
I think the commission might have several.
Do you have more questions here?
Yes, it just wasn't for Andrew.
Do what?
He has
Could
some
I ask
additional
about the
questions.
developer?
Sure.
For the development team, there were mentions of expected market home types and similar buildings to others in the area. Could you give more information on to what those buildings and home types are that you plan on building to?
I would also make sure that we all remember that the developer is not being held to anything that is not on the development plan. So were they to tell you something that's not on that, the city doesn't have a way of enforcing that. That would just be, a discussion.
Yes, I was just merely asking the question since it was brought up so that it would be addressed.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, I'll close the hearing. We have discussion at this point. Don't all of you shout out right real fast here. Any discussion from the commission? Get all your questions answered?
I believe so.
Okay.
Motion to vote on the approval of PDD 24-001.
There a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner DeBrava,
Nay.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner Hyder,
Aye.
Commissioner Bridges.
Aye.
I will say to the folks out here that I tend to agree with you on the amount of housing, but we've had so many of these situations, and it's really hard, I know, for homeowners that surround open agricultural land because it's nice and it's away from everything, but eventually I'm from being here, I know it's getting developed, and one day it's a nice thing with foxes and quail and deer and everything else running, and the next day it's going to get developed, and that's especially true right now in Republic. That too shall probably pass, but so we go to our second item of business, which is ORD 24-001, public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of amendments to Chapter 400 Comprehensive Plan and City Planning and Zoning. Thank you. Good luck to him. Thank you. They're quiet. Okay, we're ready to start. Go ahead.
All right.
Staff report, please.
Seems like we lost our audience, but I'll continue anyways. So we're here for the second item. The public hearing tonight is for ordinance 24-001, which is consideration to approve amendments to Chapter 400 zoning regulations, specifically Section 400.010. The City of Republic is requesting amendments to Chapter 400 Comprehensive Plan and City Planning and Zoning, specifically to Section 400.010, Created Composition Appointment Qualifications. Two changes are proposed to the section. The first change would allow for the appointment of up to 3 alternates to serve as voting members of the commission when appointed commissioners are absent, or in the such alternates may also be seated in the event of a vacancy of a commissionership. This will help ensure that no planning and zoning meeting is canceled due to the lack of a quorum, and that we always have as many voting members as we're allowed to have sitting. So the second change that I mentioned clarifies that the attendance of the mayor or mayor pro tem at commission meetings is discretionary rather than required. So just a minor change of wording there to put us in line with state requirements. Staff recommends the approval of the referenced amendment.
Discussion? Shoot all our bullets in the last one here.
Motion to approve ordinance 24-001.
Thanks. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Ellis?
Aye.
Commissioner Bridges?
Aye.
Commissioner Hyder?
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Going to other business, Chris?
So we are planning to vote for officers. However, tonight what we'd like to do is we'd like to have more of our members present when we do take that vote, so that we have more people to choose from for those offices, obviously. So that everyone has a chance to participate in that process. We'd like to table this to the next meeting.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Motion to table.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner DeBrava?
Aye.
Commissioner Bridges?
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis?
Aye.
Commissioner Hyder?
Aye.
Okay, now we have a very slim crew, but we are to the citizen participation section. Betty? Can't sell you on it? Okay. We'll move to the Builds Department update.
All right, so we're on topic 3 of the P&Z 101. So Chris did the first 2, so tonight's my turn. And the topic is about public hearings and public notice, which is an important topic due to the fact that the P&Z meeting is the setting for public hearings and notices for land use changes and ordinance changes. It's up real quick. So I said topic 3 is over public hearings and the public notice. So the state statute that mandates that municipalities requires elements of a public hearing is RSMO 89.050, which I've included in this slide. And it's the powers and limitations of legislative body in the city. So a public hearing must be conducted anytime a zoning ordinance or land use is amended, supplemented, or changed. That same state statute also requires that there is a public notice of the hearing at least 15 days prior to the hearing, and it must be published in a local newspaper that is distributed throughout the city. In that public notice, you should include like the date, the time, and the location of such a public hearing. I can get this to work, sorry. But go back one, sorry. So specifically to land use changes, so an example as tonight's was the PDD, or other examples would be like rezones or special use permits. The Republic Municipal Code outlines a specific process on how the public hearing process should be done. So it outlines the basic minimums that are required in the state statute. And including to that, it is required that notification is done to adjacent property owners via postage, and that's at least 185-foot buffer of the subject land use change. So for that, city staff sends out certified mailing to the property owner address, which is provided by the county. And then we also send out first-class mail to the property owner address and the address itself that's within the 185-foot buffer. That's for like tenants that may not be the owner but reside or either use the space for commercial entities, and make them aware of the land use change as well. In addition to that, the build staff also provides signage for the public hearing. This is not a requirement by state statute or the municipal code, but it's something that we do just so that adjacent areas that didn't get postage or didn't see the notification in the newspaper are aware of the subject land use change. And then similar to land use, zoning ordinances have the similar process, except it doesn't require the postage requirement of the 185-foot buffer, and staff doesn't put signage due to the fact that zoning ordinances affect the city as a whole and not a specific geographical region. Yeah, and then, so like a zoning ordinance change would be any time that either staff or somebody has brought a change in the land use chapter. So like the one that we did tonight that changed, the requirements of the members of the P&Z board and who is needing to be at the board meetings. Another example would be anytime maybe if we changed like the accessory structure code or accessory dwelling units, or maybe there's some setback changes of our original zoning code, or if we added like new zoning within the land use chapter, that would be an example of those for public hearings. So the main reasoning for public hearings, there's kind of three main elements. So the first one is it provides an opportunity for affected stakeholders to be heard. As of tonight, we had the applicant, property owners that are adjacent, and if there were renters that were here that wanted to speak against or in favor, could be heard. The second one is it's a setting for public engagement or participation for residents, which increases, civil engagement or civic engagement for property owners and, other people that are residing in the City of Republic. And then lastly, it presents information to aid in the decision-making process, especially for city staff that isn't aware of that testimony, and it gives that opportunity, especially as you as planning and zoning commissioners, to make a recommendation of approval or denial, or for city council members to make an informed decision on yes or no on a particular element. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was the public testimony. And before going into it, I want to kind of preface that, planning and zoning commissioners have like a different duty than the responsibilities of the city council member, in that your decisions aren't really discretionary, and whereas city council members can be more discretionary on their decisions. So that's kind of based on these 2 points that I've provided for the public testimony. So the first one is utilize factually based testimonies to influence your finding of facts, and make sure to note those in your finding of facts sheet and where how you were influenced on making your recommendation of denial or approval. And then the last thing is steering away from using testimonies that are emotionally driven or considered anecdotal. This is probably the most difficult thing about your position as a planning and zoning commission member, and trying to distinguish those 2 different elements. So, if they're providing testimony that doesn't relate either to the capacity of infrastructure, the adopted plans by the city, or anything that relates to like surrounding land uses and how it's harmonious, they may be considered anecdotal or emotionally driven facts, and you want to steer away from those when providing that for your recommendation of approval or denial. So that's kind of all I had for topic 3. The next topic that we'll be going over is the general overview of city plans and master planning, so that we can give you at least a little bit of insight on those things that you should be using for making your recommendation of approval or denial. But that's all I had for tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we have last order of business is somebody needs to make a motion to adjourn, and
Motion to adjourn.
there's a second.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Ellis?
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava?
Aye.
Commissioner Bridges?
Aye.
Commissioner Hyder?
Aye.